Back, and we're starting with the state of emergency issues in and around it, where we have been with the state of emergency. Over the last year or so, we've had an extension of state of emergency in 3 northern states and northeast states. And after the extension, we're expecting that it will be extended again. But the fracas and the problem that was created as a result of what the police called a motley crowd that came around the National Assembly led to a situation where the National Assembly ended up not being able to discuss the issue of state of emergency, and as a result did not make any extension, did not give any extension to what the request of the president had been. So in view of that, we're looking this morning to speak with someone who represents the man that seemed to be in the eye of the storm to some extent today, and that's the Inspector General of Police. But we're not speaking with him. It's going to be the Force PRO, Mr. Emmanuel Ojukwu, who's the Commissioner of Police. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise. He's out there in Abuja studio of Channels Television. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning.
It is great to have you here. We're expecting a few other guests in the studio, but before they get in and join us on this conversation, let's start with you. The first question will be, we know that there is this issue of state of emergency, the need for extension, and that's why the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has requested the National Assembly to think of an extension and to grant an extension. But that has not happened. Since that did not happen, first of all, let us look at the benefits that we have derived from the state of emergency that we have had in the last year or so in the Northeast. What would you say has been the benefit of the one that we had anyway, before we start talking about the importance of extending or renewing state of emergency?
Well, the military are the key officers on the ground in the states where we have state of emergency. So they are leading the operation. The police are playing a key part as well. I do know that since the emergency began, there have been restrictions of movement of people, some issues about people's human rights. We understand all that. But I do know that since the emergency began, people now have a greater awareness of their security. And we do have now an increased citizen participation in their security. There have been a lot of gains, actually. I'm sure the military will speak on that. But as a police officer, I know that fear of crime has reduced tremendously. A few areas have been taken back from the bad boys, and the police have restored normalcy, have restored the order in those areas. People have returned to their homes. There have been a lot of successes, I can admit.
Okay, let's look at specifics, Mr. Ojukwu. If we're to look at specifics, for the Nigeria Police Force, you played a key role. Apart from that, it's not just a military operation that did not involve you. What has been the role of the police, and what has been your experience on as far as the battlefront is concerned in the northeast of Nigeria?
What the police does is that whenever the military liberates an area, the police will occupy and then gradually bring back the citizens to take back their homes, and life is brought back to normal. That's essentially police role. People whose territories were taken by bad boys, once they return, they need to be rehabilitated. They will need counseling and some restorative efforts to get them back to life. The police does all that in concert with some other security agencies and health operators.
And that being the case then, when we look at the number of growing IDPs, the internally displaced people, And we hear what the NGOs are saying in terms of very limited support from NEMA, from police, from federal government. What is it specifically, again, emphasis on the word specifically, what is it that the police is doing? What kind of budget do you have to hand to help those who are internally displaced people in the northeast of Nigeria?
Yes, a situation of emergency where people are internally displaced, it calls for extra measure on the part of Nigeria police, because we are the people's helpers and we are their friends. We try to get them out of a siege mentality and get them back to normal living. What the police does is to secure their environments, to stop further incursion. And I do know when people are being rehabilitated, they have some facilities that are in bad conditions, and maybe the houses may not have doors and stuff like that. That will make them further prey to predators. The police make sure that those areas are secured with increased foot patrol, motorized patrol, and personal contact with the people. We build a synergy for them to wake up and then begin to police themselves under community policing. They partner with the police in the work we are doing so that they can live normal lives. Apart from that, we do a lot of counseling because people are traumatized. We bring them back from where they were to where they ought to be.
So when, okay, Mr. Juku, when some people were alluding to the fact that pushing the Boko Haram insurgents back recently in the northeast was the work of vigilantes, how does the police feel when the vigilantes are able to achieve that in some of the areas where our military personnel and even our policemen are not able to?
Well, I do not comment on the successes of military operations, but I do know as a police officer, we do encourage neighborhood watch groups, vigilante associations, because they are part of what we call informal policing. They know the environment more than we do. They are local people. They know the language, they know the terrain. They know who are the bad boys in their areas. And so they assist police and law enforcement agencies in their job. It's also part of what the Constitution requires of every citizen to render necessary assistance to law enforcement agencies in the maintenance of law and order. So vigilante groups are welcome in their operations. All we're asking in Nigeria Police is that their activities be streamlined. We don't want bad eggs or criminals to join them and use the cover of vigilante to perpetrate evil and further traumatize our people. We want their operations to be under strict control and supervision.
So, okay, your question.
Sorry, Mr. Juko, what would you say to those who say that the state of emergency only afforded the what you call bad boys unfettered avenues of running roughshod over the entire area? If you recall that it was during a state of emergency that the Chibok girls were abducted, and all the atrocities that we heard about were happening during the time that there was a state of emergency.
Well, the fight against insurgency is ongoing. What state of emergency does is to restrict movement. That's a little incursion into some human rights. We cannot say categorically that state of emergency has worsened the condition. I do believe it has improved security in that sub-region.
So what about what has happened just yesterday in Kano? 2 incidents in Kano. Was it that the police did not get any intelligence? Our military apparatchik did not get any intelligence whatsoever to have been able to avert the loss of lives and destruction of properties in Kano? And it's a big city.
Yes, Kano is key to Nigeria's economy, and whatever affects any part of this country affects our tone as police officers. So we are concerned about what happened in Kano, and we regret the loss of lives and property that attended that incident. That being the case, the police did all that was necessary to be present in and around the premises of the mosque. What we provide, most of them are peripheral security. But you do know, criminals, they still do a number of things, and sometimes they beat security. But we are getting it better as time goes on.
Is that an admission of the fact that you did not have any intelligence to help to ensure that we could have averted this situation? It's okay, it's not okay if it happens in Maiduguri or it happens in Adamawa or Yobe. But at least to some extent we understand that that part of the country, they're running riot all around it. But in Kano, how could this happen without the police and the military being aware? That's the question here. How come we didn't have any intelligence telling us that this is likely to happen and averting it, or helping to nail it so that within 24 hours we know the people who have committed this atrocity and they've been captured?
Okay. The antenna of Nigeria police has been raised for many, many months since we began the war against insurgency. So we have been upbeat, and almost a red alert signal has been raised in every police formation nationwide, not just in Kano or in the northeast, nationwide. So on any day of worship, you find out there's an increased presence of police personnel around worship centers, both on Sundays and on Fridays. Because we do know that these bad boys they like to go to where there's crowd. Whenever there's a large gathering of people, the police are sensitized to adopt extra measures. It has almost become routine to have such large police presence in and around the premises of worship centers. So we've always been doing that. We regret what happened yesterday in Kano.
So would you then say that you still did not expect this to happen, or you were not aware of it, or was there any police presence at the mosque? This is a big mosque. It's not some backwater, very tiny mosque with just about 20 people. This is a mosque that harbored so many people, that had so many worshippers throughout the course of that Friday. How could that happen and there was no policemen to make sure that this was averted?
No, we had good police, a complement of police and security presence in and around the mosque. So it's not a failure of intelligence, so to speak. We've always been there in every worship center, whether it's in Kano or wherever. And we'll try to prevent crimes from occurring. But when such crimes do occur, we now detect and find out who did what and why he did what he did.
So,
do we have any idea who did that in Kano?
The matter is under investigation, and I do know that in a few days from now, we'll come out with a statement as to the authors of that crime.
Okay, thank you very much. Please don't go away. Just stay with us for a minute. We now have in the studio Mr. Ario Dende, who is a security consultant. He's on my right-hand side, and also right
on your
here
left-hand side.
Sorry, my